On this episode of the Oklahoma Breakdown with Ikard and Lehman, presented by Riverwind Casino, we each give you our top 5 questions for OU football with training camp starting today, and we give you our winners and losers of the week. Please download and subscribe to the podcast, rate it 5 stars, and write us a good review. Follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Just search Oklahoma Breakdown on any of those, and you'll find us. All right, our man Michael Hosty will kick this thing off. It's time for the Oklahoma Breakdown. It's a beautiful Wednesday, July 31st, and you're listening to the Oklahoma Breakdown with Ikard and Lehman, presented by Riverwind Casino. Riverwind is Oklahoma City's premier casino experience, and there are so many reasons why Riverwind is consistently voted OKC's #1 casino, but it all starts with their amazing variety of gaming thrills and excitement. Riverwind's beautiful award-winning environment plays host to more than 2,800 of the latest electronic games with a huge selection of table games, including blackjack match roulette, and Teddy's favorite, craps. No matter what your game, Riverwind has it in spades and hearts. And to learn more about their gaming promotions and entertainment options in the month of July, well, I guess you should probably be more concerned about August at this point, but all you got to do is visit riverwind.com. Riverwind Casino, simply the best. It's here. Training camp for the Oklahoma Sooners starts today, Ted. Let's go.
Yep. Exciting times. Yeah. Fingers crossed through camp, right? This is kind of whenever some things dry up, you don't hear a whole lot, but sometimes good news is, or no news is good news.
Let's start. So we're both going to give our top 5 questions for OU football with training camp starting. And I think we should just go your 5 and then my 5. I think that's the best way to do it. That way you can lay out all your thoughts. And we have not communicated about this. We have not compared lists, so there may be some crossover, but I think that's the easiest way to do it. Ted, are you prepared? Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Teddy's top 5 questions for Oklahoma football with training camp starting today are.
Well, number one for me, and I think it's a good quarterback's number one, Jackson Arnold. And I feel good enough at most places to where I feel like this is going to be the most important question for us. This is going to determine the season is how good is Jackson Arnold? Can he take all of the good things that we've seen, the big arm, the athleticism, the playmaking ability? Is he going to be able to channel all of that and we get to see good Jackson Arnold? Or is a little bit of the bad that we saw going to be a battle that he fights, early on, and we have to see him take his lumps as a quarterback? Um, I think we're only going to go as far this year as Jackson Arnold takes us. He's going to have to be at least in the top half of the SEC quarterback wise. He's got all of the tools for that, and yeah, how he plays, especially as a young quarterback, will factor a lot with some of the play around him. But if he's not really good this year, it's going to be a difficult season for us.
I think that is a very fair statement. When you look at Jackson Arnold, and he's inexperienced, he's extremely talented, but inexperienced. What's your biggest concern? Like at this point right now, without having seen him play, any games this season, like what's your biggest concern? Is it the decision making? Is it the mental piece of playing the position? Because the guy's got all the physical tools.
Yeah, I think it's just the experience factor. The decision making is, quarterback's not my position to really critique, but I feel like that's for the most part, unless a guy just has it and that happens from time to time, I feel like the decision making is the one that's most tied to experience. So I do feel like that's of all of the things, that's going to be the one that struggles. But it doesn't mean that he can't grasp it right away. The decision making that he had against Arizona wasn't horrible. There were some bad balls that he threw, and there were some bad decisions in there, obviously, but he did way more good. So I still, we've talked about this, I still feel like very good that he's going to be uh, a top notch quarterback. We just have to kind of see it play out. And I think getting all more reps as the number one guy is going to continue to help him. He's had, we talked about spring. It's not spring and then training camp. You have a long time in between there to where you are working with wideouts, still, being the guy. So I'm confident about it. But yeah, like that's really the only question for me is the decision making piece.
I do think, and we're not going to know until, and we may not know until they play Tennessee. I do think it's really interesting to think about what they're going to do with him when it comes to design QB run game.
Yeah.
Mobile guy, a pretty thick guy, not a huge guy, but when you look at his height and his weight, well built in the lower body. But how many hits do you want him to take? Like, what is that? What is that thought process for Joe John Finley and Seth Luttrell when it comes to how they want to use him in the run game? And that kind of ties into the RPO piece of the offense for Jackson Arnold, which is, in my opinion, where you saw him make some of the mistakes in the bowl game. Was where when things were a little cloudy, a little muddy, maybe he makes the wrong decision instead of just handing the ball off. So is he completely dialed in to the RPO piece of things, when to hand it, when to throw it, where to throw it? What are Seth Luttrell and Joe John Finley trying to accomplish with those RPO concepts? And then you also factor in what he's going to be asked to do as a runner. There's just a lot, man. There's a lot with Jackson Arnold, and clearly it's the most important position. But this is this is kind of how you end up talking when you've got an inexperienced quarterback.
Yeah. And, I wonder if the RPO stuff, like, I would think that that would be where the helmet communication would help the most, right? When they're going fast and they've got the RPO looks and, you're getting what look they're in, from your comm system. But I don't know. That's the question. And the run game stuff to me, I, usually that's dictated by, well, not always, but often by what the rest of your quarterback situation looks like. Like how comfortable are you having that guy out there taking some hits? So I don't know. I'm still really confident there, but to me, it's my number one question because I think the quarterback play obviously is going to have probably the biggest bearing on what the season holds for us.
I think that's fair. All right. What's your second question?
Edge, who's going to be the guy at edge? I think we're as good depth wise at that position as we've been. You know what you're going to get out of Downs. Our Mason Thomas needs to stay healthy. I think he can, and if he can, I think he can have kind of a breakout year that we've been waiting on. And I was up at OU yesterday and saw PJ. He is gigantic. I think he's getting taller too. I mean, I was shocked, but he's got to have a really good year. Spring was maybe not as big of a jump as we had thought, but it's hard in the spring maybe to take away everything. But if he can come around, and I'm interested in Woolard. You know, Phil still has him listed as the starter, and supposedly he speaks directly to the team about that. I don't know, like, but that at least caught my attention, and I think there's going to be a good rotation there at the minimum at edge. But I mean, whenever you start to talk about our defense, that's kind of your next thing is to have the breakout edge player. And it's been a little while for us, and I'm talking about like a true sack guy, a true, weapon off the edge, and that would kind of be the next evolution of the defense.
Is it? I feel like we've talked about this quite a bit. And usually PJ is the guy that we're talking about just because you look at the physical traits. What happens if there's just not an outlier guy on the edge? And that is that's something like I don't know if there's going to be one, but with how quickly teams get rid of the football now, would you rather have maybe a bunch of guys just playing kind of let's call it a B level as opposed to having one A plus guy and some B's and C's? Like if you can get everyone across the board playing at a relatively high level, I think you're going to be in pretty good shape. But it just doesn't seem like at this point we've seen anyone really stand out. Maybe our Mason Thomas with a healthy offseason is that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe PJ will be that guy eventually. That's not what we've seen up to this point. But do you need that guy? It's awfully nice to have that guy.
Yeah.
But I just don't know right now if you look at anyone, you go, hey, that guy is, he's an early round pick. We just, unless you've seen it, Ted, we just haven't seen that. Like I'm talking a first, second, third round type pick. We haven't seen that type of play from anyone in that edge room.
No, no, not yet. And there's ways, obviously, for Venables and Zach Alley to generate pressure, and Venables is really good at that. And this is usually the year 3, whenever his stuff's going to really take off, and they're going to have huge numbers in that regard. But you're right, we haven't seen it. I think health has been a factor there. Our Mason Thomas has just not been healthy for very many games. That's going to be a big factor. And I PJ, I think he's going to come around. He just had like you don't have those tools very often to where it just doesn't work, and the whatever the little magic dust is that makes it come alive. I would be shocked if he doesn't make some massive gains throughout the season. Now, that doesn't mean that he won't be, because this, like we have a tendency to feel like the development happens from January to like the end of training camp. But it's really not the case, especially with young players that haven't played very much. There's a lot of practice, a lot of reps between game 1 and game 7 and 8. So he may not be the guy that we want him to be in game 1, but that doesn't mean that he can't be by the end of the season at some point. So just looking at the guy, it's like there's a first round draft pick in there. All we got to do is like hit it once with the chisel, and it's going to just reveal itself. At least that's the hope, anyways. But I don't know. I think that kind of like quarterback, defense, I think is in such a good position across the board that you're kind of like your number one question is that like that final piece of the pie with the edge rusher, the high level player coming around the corner. So
basically, hey, does a guy emerge that has to be game planned around for the opposing offense?
yeah,
Right now, there is not one of those guys. Like if you're Temple and you're sitting down, you're not looking at any of these edge guys going, "Hey, this guy is an absolute problem. We've got to dedicate more attention to him when he's on the field." No one has proven to be that guy. It'd be awfully nice if one of those guys emerged.
yep, yeah. No, I'm with you. That's the final piece.
Question 3, what do you got?
I had running back in. I feel really good about the skill position players like as a whole, and I feel really good about running back. But I mean, we still, since Eric Gray left, it feels like we still haven't had like the guy. It's just kind of been a revolving question mark at the running back position. So like, we need a breakout guy there this year. I feel really good about it. I mean, it's a question that I feel like the answer is going to be good, but still, I'd like to know. I think Sawchuk is kind of your leader out of the gate. And then I would throw maybe my wild card on Tatum, the freshman coming in. Outside of that, I think everyone's got like some different traits, but I feel like it's I, a good way to say it maybe is I feel like we have a really high floor at the position for the first and second team running back.
So this was one of my questions. This is the first one of mine that you
Dang
have
it.
encroached upon. It's okay, but this is how I framed it. Who is our best running back?
Yeah.
Because I feel like on the offensive side, a lot of people are talking about the offensive line situation, and I totally understand that. But Ted, I kind of get the sense that the people in the building feel pretty good about where the offensive line situation is going to end up and that it's all going to come together. And they're more focused on finding if they have a game changing back. Gavin Sawchuk, he did some really nice things last year, especially in the back half of the year when it looked like he was finally healthy. But there was a lot of meat left on that bone with how some things were blocked. One-on-one situations, we talked about it a lot on here. One-on-one in space with safeties and just didn't have the ability to make guys miss often enough. So I expect Sawchuk to be better. But is he the best we've got?
Durability is a factor too, you know.
Durability, like he has had injuries. And then you just look at Caleb Hicks. He clearly looks the best physically.
Yes.
He looks fantastic. Is he a guy that emerges as a clear number one back? Right? Is he the guy that can make something out of nothing? Because this just in, you're not going to be blowing people off the ball in the SEC. You're not going to be knocking guys 5 yards off the football. That's fantasy stuff. So who can make something happen with smaller openings and who can make something happen when there's really nothing there?
Yeah.
That's what a special back is. And I'd like, is Sawchuk that guy? Can he be that guy now? Is Hicks that type of player? Is Taylor Tatum that type of player? Does Javante Barnes have like a big emergence and become that guy? I don't know, but I do think that is a massive question that they're going to try to figure out here early in training camp is, who's really the best running back they got?
Yeah. No, I agree. And I, it would make me feel a lot better if Caleb Hicks I not necessarily be the guy, but he's the guy that you feel like is the most made for the conference that we're about to enter. You know, I don't know, I think he's about 10, 15 pounds heavier than Sawchuk. And he's just really compact and put together. And I think that's the tough yards that you're talking about. So I don't know. The rotation needs to be really strong. Like it felt like last year the rotation was we're looking for something. I would prefer the rotation to feel like we need to get these guys in and let's rotate someone out who's had some nice reps, like whatever. It's like it needs to have a little bit different feel to it. But I'm with you.
Hicks is listed as 13 pounds heavier than Sawchuk.
It's a lot, especially when you're talking about carrying the ball 20 times like that. And that's 15 pounds of that ain't just waist weight. Like that is really good, lean muscle. He
It
is, yeah,
this is if you line all the running backs up at this point, if you go out to this first training camp practice and say, hey, which one looks like a starting SEC running back? Everyone that knows what they're looking at is going to say Hicks.
yeah,
But does he play like that? That's the question. So I do think Seth Luttrell and Joe John Finley, they want to run the ball. They absolutely want to run the ball, but you feel a lot more comfortable running the football more often if you're an offensive coordinator if you feel like you're handing the ball to a true difference maker. I mean, that's just the truth.
Hmm.
So, do they have a guy that when you hand it to goes, okay, here he goes, watch out? I I don't know. They're trying to figure that out.
Yeah, we'll see.
Question 4. What do you got?
Corner, corner. Um, I think this is last year. This was probably the position on defense that lagged the most, but I think it had more to do with injury and availability than it did anything. It's a big question right now, but again, it's kind of like the others. I feel good about all the different possibilities for the answer. Um, Gentry Williams back healthy. I think that's going to be a big factor. Des Malone, some size in there. Vickers, some size. Like we've got some different guys there playing the position that have added a little different dynamic with the reach and some of the things that they bring. Woody Washington with the experience coming back. Be interested to see if they move him around a little bit in the secondary to use his experience. But corner, getting some stability there and staying healthy at corner, to me, big question mark for us going into training camp.
I completely agree. I do think it's going to be interesting to see how much Zach Alley and Brent Venables lean towards the guys with elite size for the position.
Yeah.
Because typically, and Brent Venables he has been a zone coverage guy, right? A zone blitz guy. Clearly, Ted, you know that very well for a long, long time. And if you've got length and size at corner, it shrinks those holes in the zone in the back end of the defense. So how much of it is going to be Des Malone? How much of it's going to be Kenai Walker? A guy that when you just go out there and see him, Jacoby Johnson has elite size for the corner position. Is he a guy that is a factor? Remember, we saw him, factor in special teams as a freshman a year ago, but I am interested in how much they focus on the guys that have the size and length at that position because typically those are the type of zone corners you're looking for.
Yeah. No, I agree. And there's some really good athletes in there. And, if put the true serum in there, what guys would they want in there? I'm sure they want the size, but it always doesn't work out like that. I mean, I think Gentry is like your best man to man playmaking corner. Um, I don't know. I'm in like a lot of people think that he's got the chance to like rocket up the like draft boards with the
And
type of play.
he's got the size.
Yeah,
He may not be 6'2", but he's 6 foot 190, has a good build, has really long arms. Like
yeah,
when he's out there, you go, that looks like a good corner.
yeah. No,
So
and he's incredibly aggressive. I don't know a whole lot about the freshmen, the young guys, but corner is a position that you've heard me talk about defensively. D line and corner are the two places where I think freshmen are most likely to play. So we'll see if we have a guy, often comes out of nowhere at the corner position, and all of a sudden name gets start throwing around with the older guys for a chance to get some rotation out there.
Jacoby Johnson, 6'2", 200.
Yeah.
Boxes checked.
Yeah, I saw him yesterday and he looked big and frame. I mean, the frame is very large.
Boganowski and Hardy were the two freshmen that we saw significantly in the mix during spring ball, but that was at the safety spots. So it will be interesting to see if any of these true freshmen emerge and get their opportunities with the first and second team early in camp at corner.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think that we could see some different configurations defensively at times through the back end with just some of the. I mean, they got three really good safeties. I mean, just with where they are right now, they have more than three. I mean, I guess I should say that, but they have three guys with Bowman, with Robert Spears Jennings, and with Peyton Bowen that you feel would be good. Any type of that, those three guys at any rotation would be great. So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if we saw some of the three safety stuff, the 3-3-5 stuff. So, I don't know. They're going to have options on the back end to try and get all of their best in there, which is another thing that's crazy. Wasn't very long ago that we didn't feel very comfortable with the guys that we have to choose from. Right now in the secondary, it's like, how are they going to get all of these guys on the field? Another good problem to have.
It's a much better feeling
Much
than the
better.
feeling we had a couple of years ago.
The anxiety goes from will we be able to stop anyone to will we be able to keep everyone on campus? Yeah.
Yeah. Good problem to have. All right. Your fifth and final question as OU starts training camp.
And I feel so much better about this spot. It's gone from more of are we going to be good enough to what's the depth going to look like? And that's defensive line. To me, the question is the defensive line depth. I think you've got several rotations that whether it's Dominic Williams at the nose and Grayson Holton at the three technique, Jade Jackson rotating in. I think like David Stone, I feel like could kind of take you to the next level if his play is going to come quickly. It's going to happen for him.
I saw him at the Sooner Club event, Sooner Sports Properties event last weekend. He's the best looking defensive lineman we've got already. Like when you talk about the build that you are looking for an interior guy, I mean he looks fantastic, and it's only going to get better and better and better. And I expect it to get better throughout the season, right?
Yeah.
Because Smitty is going to have those young guys. People may not realize you are lifting if you are a true freshman
Yep.
in the program. So he's only going to continue to add strength and add weight throughout the season. But man, he looks the part. I mean, he absolutely does. So
He looks
I'd
totally
be
different than he did in the spring for me whenever I saw him last.
lean,
Yeah.
wide back.
Mm-hmm.
It's
So,
it's what you're looking for.
yeah. And, there's the rotation. It just feels way better than it did before we went into spring. And then you had some of the young guys emerge, and Grayson Holton looked really good. And you still got the size with DeJoun Terry in there. So and there's I think that this position is maybe what was viewed as the most critical at one point that may end up feeling like a strength of the football team. At least that's my hope.
That one kind of crosses over with one of mine, but I think it's different enough to where I'm still going to do it. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
So, your top 5 questions, just to recap. Jackson Arnold,
Yeah.
who's the guy at edge?
Yes.
Who's the guy at running back?
Uh-huh.
Corner. Is that more of a who's going to start at corner or just how are we going to play all these corners?
Kind of both. Like this, who's going to start is interesting, and really, it's just how does it look compared to last year? Because for whatever reason, kind of end up being the weakness of the defense, maybe.
Once Gentry's arm couldn't stay attached to his body, there were issues.
Yeah. Josiah Wagner was hurt. Like it was a rotation there.
That is crazy to think. Josiah Wagner, heading into the season last year, you and I were having conversations that he may start
Mm-hmm.
as a freshman. And now he's not even on the roster.
I know it.
I'm going
Where
to
did he
choose to
go?
believe. Didn't he go to like
Where did
Washington or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
it is, it's good to, I think that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing, right?
Yes.
Or maybe he's from Washington. Where did he
He's
transfer?
he's from he's from that area.
I think he could. I think he went to Cal. That sounds right. Cal.
Okay. Yeah.
Because if
West
he would
Coast
have gone
somewhere.
to Washington, I would have been like, oh man, pretty good landing spot. I think it was Cal. I think he's from the state of Washington.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean that had I think that's the position group we look at this year and say we've improved the most from one year to the next is going to be corner.
All right, let's get to my top five questions as OU starts training camp. But first, fuel your journey at Love's Travel Stops and save 10 cents per gallon on gas and auto diesel. Download the Love's Connect app today. It takes just seconds to unlock savings when you scan your barcode in the app at the pump. This discount and other mobile deals on drinks and snacks are available at more than 640 Love's locations across the country. Before your next trip, download the Love's Connect app, your guide to savings on the road.
And celebrate with a Schooner All American Ale, the official craft beer of OU Athletics from Coop Ale Works. Named after the iconic Sooner schooner that races across Owen Field after an OU score, you can join in on the celebration with an ice cold beer from Coop Ale Works. You can enjoy it at the Palace on the Prairie, at OU Athletic events, at the bar, at the tailgate, and in the comfort of your own home. For more information on Schooner All American Ale, visit schoonerale.com. Must be 21 to purchase. Please drink responsibly. Schooner All American Ale, the taste of game day.
And we are brought to you by Simple Modern, the Oklahoma owned drinkware company and number one drinkware sales leader on Amazon and Target. And this year, Simple Modern is now the official drinkware sponsor of the University of Oklahoma and Oklahoma Athletics. Keep on the lookout. You're sure to spot exclusive drinkware options at all home games so you can stay hydrated while supporting your favorite Oklahoma team. And with 10% of all Simple Modern profits going to charity, many right here in Oklahoma, you'll also know you're helping Oklahomans off the field as well. Simple Modern, good everywhere. My top five questions as OU starts training camp. Number one was, who is our best running back? We covered that. How dare you steal one of mine, Ted?
I'm surprised there was just one.
I do think that it's interesting. I do think they feel better about their offensive line situation than I thought they would. And they're more concerned about, do we have backs that can break a lot of tackles and make big time explosive plays? Like that's just the feeling I'm getting as this thing ramps up.
Yeah.
Question
I think,
two.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, if you had to choose between the two, I would say that that's the better one if you're worried about it. Right.
Now we may get 2 weeks into training camp and that narrative could shift, but we'll
Confidence
see.
falls apart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see. My second question: are we sure Branson Hickman is the starting center? And when you're playing with a ton of tempo, which I expect this offense, I expect Joe John Finley and Seth Luttrell to still go fast. Now, in a perfect world, they can change speeds, do a lot of different things from a personnel standpoint, but just with both of their backgrounds calling plays, they have both been tempo guys. So I expect this offense to still play with a lot of tempo. The center is very, very important when it comes to processing everything, what the defense is doing, making the calls quickly, communicating that to everyone. And you have to do that all in a few seconds before you have to snap the football to the quarterback when he wants it. And Hickman, he was a really solid player at SMU, did a nice job. And I was glad after the Troy Everett injury, I was really glad he chose OU because I thought that kind of fortified the depth at the center spot. However, something that Brent Venables said last weekend at that Sooner Club event, it caught my attention. Toby Rowland asked him about some guys on offense and defense that we should be excited about. The first guy he mentioned on offense was Josh Bates.
Uh,
And I kind of did one of these, because now the first three guys he mentioned were all defensive guys because of course
right.
it's BV. But yeah, the first offensive player he mentioned was Josh Bates. And I just found it very interesting because now he mentioned right after he mentioned Bates, he mentioned the addition of Hickman from SMU. But how many times does the head football coach needs to tell us that he loves Josh Bates? He says it a lot. He talked about it a lot during the spring. He mentioned it last weekend. So it got me thinking, have I written Josh Bates off too quickly when it comes to the competition at the center position? And are we just all a little premature with the assumption that Branson Hickman is going to be the center? Josh Bates is way less experienced than Hickman, but Bates should know the system better, right? He's been in it longer, and he's bigger than Hickman. And we all know that Venables, Beanbo, that everyone loves Bates' attitude. You got to block people. It's not just about wanting to be physical; it's about blocking people. But I don't know. So maybe my question is there more of a competition at the center position than a lot of us think?
Yeah.
And
I,
and typically Beatenbow doesn't hand anyone anything. He doesn't
right.
care how old you are. It's all about how you practice. So if Bates goes out there and practices at a really high level these first couple of weeks of training camp, Ted, I with how much the head coach loves him, I'm not so sure he's not going to be the starting center. I don't know, but hearing BV say that and just kind of thinking about like, hey, Hickman, yeah, he's played a ton of football, but he hasn't played a ton of football in this system. You can
Yeah.
look at some of the similarities to what SMU is doing and what Oklahoma is doing. There's no doubt about that, but it's a really important position when you've got an offensive line that hasn't played a lot of football together. The center has to be this stabilizing force, keep everyone calm, get everyone on the same page. There's this leadership component to it. Like, I haven't been around Hickman. Does he have great leadership qualities? So I think it's really, really interesting to look at that center position and go, okay, maybe there is a competition here when we're all just assuming that, hey, Hickman was this sought after transfer. He comes. I know this. Beanbo ain't handing him anything. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting conversation.
I would say two things. Number one, Bates, we talked about it. He was one of the most improved players on the entire team throughout the 15 practices in the spring.
Correct. Let's also be transparent.
The bar started low.
It I came back from the first practice of watching him and I went, Ted, we got a problem. We got a center
Yeah.
problem. And to his credit, got better and better and better. And ultimately, when it was like playing in a game, I thought he played really well in the spring game.
Mhm.
I thought he played really well. But yes, let's not rehash my initial feelings when I went and watched that group practice for the first time in the spring.
Well, so here's like what I'm getting at with my second point. Say what we want about Hickman. We don't know how he's going to fit into the system and will he pick it up quickly. But the floor at center is pretty high. I mean, he's a good player. So if Bates wins that battle, you have to feel pretty good about where Bates has come, right? So if there does end up being a really intense position battle at the center spot, I think ultimately this is going to be one of those cases where you end up feeling pretty good about it, even considering that Troy Everett's going to be back sooner than later as well.
Yeah. The only thing about those guys, and not to get too deep into the offensive line depth, but like when you look at Hickman and you look at Bates, those are centers only.
Yeah.
I think Everett's the same way. I think we learned that a year ago. He battled at guard, but he's a center. So we'll see how long it takes Everett to get fully back. But yeah, I think there's this assumption that hey, it's Hickman's job and it's really not a competition. And I don't know, man. I think that's one of the more interesting position battles of training camp.
Yeah. Well, so how would you, if you were a handicapper, how would you put it like the percentages right now at center?
60-40 Hickman. Lean on the experienced guy.
Yeah. How are you, how does that 40%, is that split between Bates and Everett at all, or is that just
I'm not factoring Everett in until I know he's
okay?
ready to go. It's 60 Hickman, 40 Bates until I get out there and see him.
Which is interesting because I'm guessing before that event you would have been 100% Hickman, right? Or
70-20
se-
or 75-25,
yeah,
70-30 maybe. I don't know. 80-20. So it'll be it when the head football coach says things, it carries weight with me. So
yeah,
I'm interested to see how that center spot works out. All right, question 3. Is Kendall Dolby possibly the most important player on OU's defense and we just don't talk about him at all?
yeah,
That
yeah,
cheetah spot is so important in Venables' defense. Got to cover, you got to tackle, got to be able to blitz. And I feel like at the end of last season, he really emerged as one of the better players, more consistent players on the defense. And I just feel like we never talk about the guy.
yeah,
We talk about who's going to replace him. And I get it. Like he's 5'11 and 185 pounds. He is a corner playing the nickel spot. Yeah, so I just think that when you when you have the type of production he had late in the year last year when he got his opportunities, I just feel like he earned the trust of the coaching staff. And going back to what the head football coach said last weekend, he was asked who are players on defense to be excited about. The first name he brought up, Kendall Dolby.
yeah,
That that carries a lot of weight with me. So there are certainly questions, Ted, about at that size, can Dolby be an every down player in the SEC to all personnel groupings? Right, that's a fair question and an interesting conversation. But we never talk about Kendall Dolby. We talk about all these other defensive backs, and it's quite possible that Kendall Dolby is the key to this defense going to another level.
yeah. And Venables, we've talked about this a bit. Like whenever we were our production meeting before the spring game, he said Kendall Dolby, like one of the first guys he talked about, he said Kendall Dolby has a chance to be elite. And like you don't say that about a guy if you think he's a solid starter and a piece that you trust and that you put out there, he's going to be in the right place. Yeah, we got some more athletic guys and some guys that are size wise maybe fit the spot a little bit better, but we could trust him. That's you don't throw elite out there for guys like that. You throw elite out there for guys that you feel like go above and beyond what you typically see across the country at that position. And if he's gonna he talk him up like that, that's to me pretty telling. And that position is probably the most critical to have experience at. And he's got quite a bit of game experience playing that spot now. And that's a big factor to me. Like the comfort level, like just the play, because like forget any other development of skills and speed and size and all that stuff. Just the comfort level with the defense and the experience that you've gained in that position playing like live game reps, I think is going to really take him to the next level. It may still be a guy that we just we don't talk about a whole lot because he locks down the spot and it's not a question and they're not throwing there at him a whole bunch. But I mean, if Coach Venables feels that good about the spot, I feel that good about the spot.
As do I. One thing you will love is BV said Kendall Dolby tackles like a rattlesnake. I've never heard that in my entire life, but it sounded awesome.
Sounds awesome and it sounds creepy. It's like I don't want to get tackled by a rattlesnake, so
No, no,
I
I do.
prefer
No,
almost anything else.
no thanks. All right, question 4 for me. This is it's a boring conversation, but who's the backup quarterback? We are, and rightfully so, we are really focused on Jackson Arnold and what he's going to be at the quarterback position. He's the starter. He's incredibly talented, but also inexperienced. But he's the guy. But football happens. I mean, how many teams last season, elite teams, had to play multiple quarterbacks? A lot of them, man. A lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And now, in a perfect world, Jackson Arnold runs out there as your starter every single football game. But football can happen. And if he goes down for any reason at any point, who runs out at the quarterback position? It feels like it's a battle between Casey Thompson and Michael Hawkins Jr. Those seem to be the two guys. We were really, really impressed with what we saw from Hawkins in the spring as a true freshman. And he's added a lot of weight. He looks good physically. The mobility piece of things for him, like he's the most mobile guy they have in the quarterback room. But I don't know where Casey Thompson is physically. Guys had a lot of injuries coming off the blown out knee during the season a year ago. It is are we sure it's Thompson? Is it Hawkins? Is it a battle? Is everyone healthy? Like, is Casey Thompson healthy enough to battle this out throughout training camp? I don't really know, but with how many times we see starters go down at some point in the season, the backup quarterback spot is really, really important. And
Yeah.
it changes how Joe John Finley and Seth Luttrell call plays.
Yep.
If you do not feel good about the quarterback position, the depth in that room, your backup, you call plays accordingly. And I'm not saying you call plays scared, but like you always in the back of your mind say, ugh, that may get Jackson hit. Let's not dial that one up. I mean, those are very real conversations that take place, Ted.
It puts a governor on your offense,
Yeah.
And we saw that with Dylan Gabriel whenever they didn't feel comfortable about the backup position compared to when they did with Jackson Arnold. We're able to cut him loose a little bit. I think it's the same thing here. And I think there's going to be a battle throughout training camp, obviously, for that backup spot. But the question or the answer to the question may be different throughout the season, like depending on the opponent and what the game is like. Early on, I would imagine Hawkins is going to be the guy that gets your backup reps like, hey, let's get the twos in, let's get some work here. I think it's going to be Hawkins. If you find yourself, up a touchdown in the second half in the Tennessee game, do you go with experience there in the second half whenever you're nursing a lead? If you're down, does Hawkins give you the playmaking ability to come back? Like, I don't know if the answer changes given the situation.
No, that's a good point. But when you just think about the quarterback spot, if it's Jackson Arnold and then Hawkins is the backup, you've got a second year player that has started one bowl game, and then you're going to have a true freshman as your backup that hasn't played a single down in college football. Not exactly what you're looking for at the quarterback position, but hey, at least both of them are extremely talented. So that makes it feel a little better about how that situation may look. But yeah, it's just I know it's a boring conversation, but it feels like backup quarterback has become more and more important, not only in college but in the NFL. I mean, how many second and third stringers did we watch play NFL games last year? Oh,
Oh yeah.
so
Yep.
that QB depth is a key. So I'm really interested as OU heads into training camp who earns that backup job. My last question, you kind of hit on it with what you said about the defensive line depth, but mine's just about one guy. Will Grayson Halton hold up? And this is what I mean. Brent Venables believes in a physical training camp. Now, you're not going to do anything stupid, but it is going to be demanding. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be pretty miserable, is what it's going to be. And the biggest question I have about Grayson Halton, it's not about his pass rush ability. It's not like I know he can rush the passer. I know he can be disruptive. But the biggest question I have about him is can he withstand the grind of the interior in the SEC week in and week out at 6'2" and, somewhere between 290 and 295 pounds? I assume he'll start camp a little heavier, and then typically throughout the season, it's kind of hard to maintain weight, but he's got to really focus on that. But training camp, I'm looking at what Halton is able to do in training camp because he has not been through a Brent Venables training camp as a starter. And being a starter in training camp is very, very different than being a rotational guy or a fringe rotational guy. You are getting reps. And is Halton a guy, when they really got this thing ramped up in these first couple weeks of training camp, is Halton a guy that is out there on the field for each and every rep he's supposed to get? Or is he one of those guys, oh, got to take a practice off, a little banged up, shoulder, got to take a practice off, oblique, whatever it is, thumb, like that type of stuff? Or can he withstand the grind of training camp as a starter in the interior? Can he, and I'm going to take one of my favorite Teddy Lehman words, can he become calloused as an interior starter? Because he has not been through a training camp where he is one of the guys that runs out there first on the defensive line. And it's just a different experience, Ted. It
Yeah.
just is. You're out there, you are getting whether it's, 6 plays, 5 plays, whatever, like you're out there and you are grinding against the ones on the offense. And like, how does he hold up physically? I want to see that in these first couple weeks of camp because you don't want to say, oh, that's gonna determine whether or not he can hold up throughout the season in the SEC. But I just that's my number one concern. I want to see how he holds up.
Yeah. He's been a smaller player. I don't know what he was listed at last year. And he is a guy that is put together really good. So he doesn't look like he's super heavy, but I mean, he looks like he's played like in the 270s more than it does. Like, so he's put on a lot of weight. And if he's able to carry it the same way he carried the weight previously, and we've talked about, he's got some tremendous upside, but the durability factor, can you withstand all of the physical, the in and out that happens week in, week out, training camp? I mean, it's one thing to put it on whenever you're not playing football all day, every day, and it's so exhausted that it's hard to go get the calories in and do all of that stuff. Like, becomes way more difficult to hold that weight on. And he could be a guy, like you mentioned, maybe he weighed in at 295 at their big weigh-in, but after training camp and 3 weeks of the regular season, he's down to like 280. That's not out of the
That
realm of
that
possibility.
cannot happen.
Right.
And this is something that comes up with him, and the coaches still talk about like sometimes he's not serious enough. And I'm not trying to say, hey man, don't have fun, don't be silly. Like you need those guys on your team desperately, especially during training camp to keep things light at times. But he's got to take, I've said, I don't know how many times I've said it now on here, but a lot. He's got to take the weight thing seriously. He can't be one of these guys that, you look up 3 weeks, he's lost 10 pounds. It can happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how tired you are. I don't care. I don't care if it's a 2.5 hour practice. Go eat, go drink. I've got no sympathy for because I lived it. Just go do it. It's part of your job. So I just, and the reason that I'm so focused on Holton is because to me, it's clear he's their best interior pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
They need him on the field because an interior pass rush can wreck so many things for an imposing offense, but he's got to be able to do the boring things of the position and hold up physically doing those things. And so that's where, like, that is one of my main focuses is what does he look like through these first couple of weeks of training camp for OU? And my hope
Yeah.
is he's carrying the new weight great. He still has the twitch and he's anchoring when he's getting double teamed by the offense. He's holding up. He's staying healthy. Like that's what it looks like in a perfect world for me for Grayson Holton.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. One of those guys that I feel like has tremendous upside, and this could be a breakout year for him if he's able to answer the questions that you just laid out.
That's all I got.
Love it.
One too much crossover. That's always good.
Yeah, and I think most of the questions have like you feel good about the way that they can get answered. I there's a lot of upside in most of those. Like they're not like you're not necessarily feeling problem areas. You've got good, healthy competition in the areas where you need improvement. And I don't know. Overall, it feels like they're in a pretty good spot.
I'll say this. It's weird. If we were still in the Big 12, we'd be talking about this team going and winning a Big 12 championship and going to the playoff.
Having a bye week.
Yeah, with how the offense or with how the roster is put together.
Mm-hmm.
That conversation dramatically changes being in the SEC and having the schedule that OU's got.
Yep.
But hey, it's going to be so fun. Let's go. Training camp's here, baby. Let's go. Let's finish up with our winners and losers of the week. But first,
All you grill masters, listen up. Didier Ranch delivers premium quality beef that is 100% raised in Oklahoma right to your front door. Go to DidierRanch.com, DIDIER ranch.com to order one of their premium quality beef boxes and use promo code Oklahoma15 for 15% off your order. Filet, ribeye, New York strip, sirloin, steak burgers. They've got it all and they ship anywhere in the continental U.S. and Oklahomans can get deliveries in just 1 to 2 days. The only thing better than having a lot of premium beef on the O&D line, having premium beef delivered right to your front door. Didier Ranch, tradition tastes better.
and head to the garage for hand smashed patties, butter toasted buns, and ice cold beer. It's the perfect spot to watch any big game, and with all the garage locations being open at 10 p.m. or later every night, it's the go-to late night spot. Visit eatthegarage.com to find a location near you and order online from the garage in your neighborhood.
Attention business owners, you need Insurica in your life. Insurica is one of the country's largest insurance brokers with 30 offices throughout Oklahoma, Texas, and the Southwest. Insurica is able to customize programs by accessing the latest information from many insurance carriers. They compare, contrast coverage offerings and pricing in order to design a cost-effective, comprehensive program to meet your business's specific needs. If your business partners with Insurica, you'll save huge amounts of money and take back control of your total cost of risk. If your business wants to be best in class, connect with Insurica at Insurica.com. That's INSURICA.com.
Dad, I forgot call your shot, but just remembered, and I've got two. Let's hit them real quick.
Okay.
That would have been a disaster. We asked you guys number one question you have for Oklahoma football as they start training camp. This first one comes from Daniel Lewis. Can the special teams become a weapon instead of a liability? BV and staff need to find their inner Bill Snyder to win on all three phases of the game. They spent we went out to a lot of spring ball practices. It was shocking how much time they spent on special teams.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to emphasize it. And I know they have, but it's tough. It's tough. You don't get a whole lot of opportunities to make like game changing, game breaking plays positively, but there's a whole lot of opportunity to go out there and screw things up on special teams. And the that's the first place to start is don't screw things up. Make your kicks. They're not going to be trying a whole lot of fringe field goals that are outside their area. Make your kicks. Get your punts off. Don't punt it into the end zone every time. Just be clean special teams wise, and you'll be fine. We're going to be in. I know everyone knows this, but we're going to be in a lot of one possession football games this year. The margin for error between win and loss is going to be tighter than it's ever been. A couple of special teams plays here and there are ultimately probably going to be something that you can point to that are going to change the outcome of the game. So I agree 100%. They've got to really tighten the screws in special teams.
This other one comes from at Xavier_X5X, who says, who is the most likely to have that breakout season on defense to take over that leadership role after Danny, Billy, and Woody leave? It's a pretty complex question there. Like, not only, hey, who's going to be a real factor, but who's going to be such a factor that they kind of turn into the leader of the defense next season?
I mean, it is interesting though. I who's I feel really good about inside backer.
My initial reaction is Kip Lewis.
Yeah,
He has, and it two major factors. Number one, I think he's going to be a hell of a football player. And typically, the guys that play at a really high level become your leaders. And two, that dude has energy for days.
yeah,
He's got the energy capacity to be the vocal leader of the defense moving forward once Stutzman is gone. He has everything, and he's got the proper amount of crazy for an inside backer. I just plays at full tilt. I think he's got everything you want as a typical like, oh, that's the alpha leader inside backer of your defense.
yeah. No, I think that's a I think he's got a great opportunity for that. I feel really good about the position inside backer. Multiple guys that you feel comfortable with playing out there, but it's also I don't know how I feel about any of them without Stutzman there. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like this is going to be a big year for someone to kind of develop into that role. Same thing on the back end. With what Bowman's done, Downs on the defensive line or in the edge room, like I mean, that is something to think about as this season starts to unfold. Like, okay, we know what we've got this year, but you start forecasting a little bit, and it'll be fun to see who those guys are that step into those roles.
No doubt. As always, Ted, kick us off. Who do you have as your winner of the week?
I had to go with the NFL on this, and I don't know if it's so much the NFL, but people have been calling it for this forever. I still don't think there's a good way to do it, but the NFL Hawkeye system, they're going to start. I think they're maybe going to do it just to kind of get a feel for it before it's official. It's the spotting the ball with the chain gang. People have always said, "Oh, you need a GPS in there." In the football, the way we spot the ball is archaic. We've got to come up with. There's got to be a better way. I don't believe that there is a better way, but I could have my mind changed pretty quickly with the Hawkeye system. I'm curious to see how it works. I sometimes the ambiguity that's thrown in there on where the ball's going to be spotted is part of the fun with football, right?
You like the drama of the chain gang coming out and going, "Oh my
Sure.
gosh, is it going to be short?" It is dramatic and fun. It is. There's just no denying that.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm curious to see. It could end up being really good and something that takes a lot of. I, it's a gray area on where the football gets spotted across all levels, and as much that's is on the line game after game, it's kind of weird that it's done that way. But like I said, I don't know that there's a better way to do it. You still have to have someone like time up when the runner is down. And I don't know how quickly and accurately they're going to be able to do that without kind of the review system that we've seen. But like I said, I'm willing to watch and I'm open minded.
I assume that this is the same technology that they've been using in tennis for forever, right?
Right.
So I assume there's going to be a bunch of fancy cameras installed and calibrated at every NFL stadium across the league. It sounds like they're going to use some of this stuff during the preseason this year and just how see how everything goes. From what I understand, the its main function is going to be to tell the ref when a first down was made so that they don't have to measure. Like, hey, they reached the line to gain. Let's keep this thing moving. The chains, fear not, people. The chain gang is still going to be there as a backup, from what I understand. You're still going to get those guys holding the signs over there.
Here's where this is what I don't understand though. Like it's easy to track the football. I get that. That's not difficult. You could track the football just fine. How do you track when the runner is down? It's like you're adding a whole new equation into just like the tennis ball thing. You're just tracking one thing. Now it's matters where when the knee hits or when the elbow hits or you know the did the wrist hit land over and you're actually down by the wrist, not by the hand. How did they track that stuff? That's my question.
I maybe you have to go to replay to find the exact moment where, hey, the knee touches down. And then you can take the Hawkeye system at that moment and say, this is where the ball was.
Yeah.
Is that how it's going to
Like
work, you think?
maybe it's they
Like
sync up the video somehow. Yeah.
that's, I would assume that's how the technology is going to work.
It's the other thing is like in tennis, you track the ball, but in football, the line is moving. Like it's never like it's no you don't just set it all in place. Like the first down marker is constantly moving. I don't know. It's way more involved than just tracking a tennis ball. So that's why I wanted to see how it works.
You know what I can't wait for? Our first Hawkeye system conspiracy from an NFL fan base. Like, there's
Yes.
no way. There's no way that was a first down. I cannot wait. It's going to be. I. I don't. Are they going to use this in the regular season? This is kind of like a trial period in the preseason, right?
I think it's a trial run, and from what I read, it didn't really say. It said they're going to use it to like they're going to be calibrating the stadiums and all of that stuff. So I think like the fact that they said it like that, at least the article I read, maybe it sounds like we'll just kind of monitor, see how it goes.
This says the tracking services for line to gain measurement adds cameras to stadiums to track players, officials, and the ball. The optimal tracking system notifies officials instantly if a first down was gained after the ball is spotted by hand.
Oh, it's just like a
Well, that that seems way less exciting. And
yeah.
why are we even using it? But maybe I'm missing something. But
I
it
can
says
tell
we're
you that.
reducing a significant amount of time, 40 seconds for each time of use that basically is making the game that much more impactful. So it's basically only taking the guys having to run out there and pull the chains and measure, like that's the only thing it's taking away. Thought it was gonna be cooler than that.
I did too.
Ugh.
They could just like wire me in. I give you the answer on all of that instantly, whether it's a first down or not. And
May,
like that's the thing is like once the ball is spotted, I, I that's
the
like the
spot is the issue. It's not,
yeah,
hey, like the issue
that's
is the spot.
they're fixing the only part that doesn't need to be fixed.
Yeah. So maybe they end up using it to spot the ball. They like sync up when they're down with the Hawkeye
Yeah,
technology. Like that makes the most sense.
yeah. All
But
I've said like someone has to have like a they all have to have like a clicker that hits whenever they see the guy down. Like that's whenever the ball hits the ground, essentially in tennis, right? Like that's the thing that you're spotting. So other than that, doing it that way, I have no idea how they would do it. But again, they're fixing the only part of the system that doesn't really need fixing. I mean, at least you get the dramatic walk out there to measure, I guess, I don't know.
I'm too stupid for this conversation. It just dawned on me. Like you get into this technological discussion, and I am out of my depth. All right, who do you have as your loser of the week?
Right now I'm going with Aaron Rodgers. And the only reason I'm going there, and you know me, huge Aaron Rodgers fan, one of my favorite players in the NFL. I was so amped last year watching. It was the first time I watched like Hard Knocks all the way through in a long time. Super excited, and then obviously had the chair pulled out from under us in week one. But he's back, and it just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel the same. All the momentum that was kind of behind him and all the anticipation, it's not there. They're not gonna. It looks like they're not gonna play him in any of the preseason games, and maybe that's smart. I don't know. There was some little video clip that came out a while back about him hobbling. He's kind of hobbling around on that leg, which you got to expect to some degree. I don't know.
He he claims blisters on that clip.
Yeah,
I've heard him say it multiple times. He had some bad blisters.
I just don't. I, I don't want it to be a disaster, and I feel like maybe I'm setting myself up for that. I don't know, but all the good, positive momentum that he had a year ago feels like it's gone.
It does feel different for sure. I'm not sure it for whatever reason, it does feel like him saying he was going to come back off the Achilles. I don't know. And then you had the whole, hey, is he going to be a vice president nominee thing? Like, it just feels like there was a lot of Aaron Rodgers talk when he wasn't on the field last year. And some people were just like, all right, enough.
Mm-hmm.
It did feel like he became a distraction for that football team.
Yeah.
I mean, they were dealing enough already with the Zach Wilson situation, okay? And then you threw all the Rodgers stuff at that. I don't know. Has his popularity gone down a little bit just with kind of the distraction he became? And then
Well,
let's be real, it's the Jets. It is the
it's
Jets.
it's the Jets. Um, I think you just had all of this buildup because it was the first time he was going to be playing for a new team. They were on Hard Knocks. Like it was a really entertaining Hard Knocks. Like, and you could tell though in the series last year that they were having some serious trouble with the offensive line. You remember some of the things the head coach was saying. You could foresee some of those things happening, but I don't know. It feels different. Maybe it's a good thing, and he's going to come out. He's going to look fine, be able to navigate the season. But I don't know. I just don't want him to get hurt again. I'd like to see him play some football. I think the sport is more entertaining with Aaron Rodgers playing, especially whenever he's going to be wearing a Jets uniform.
I think I don't think we're going to see him till the regular season.
Right.
It's Nathaniel Hackett's system. He knows it inside and out. I mean, when's the
You
last
would,
time Aaron Rodgers played in the preseason before he was with the Jets?
right. Yeah. It's one of those things like, does he need preseason work? No, he doesn't. But like, wouldn't you at least like to go get a series or two and put maybe the thought of the Achilles behind you? I don't know. Maybe he doesn't even need that.
He's probably just more concerned about, hey, is this offensive line holding up or not?
Yes.
Now, people, one thing about him, and it's adding to the conversation. Have you seen the clips of him and Garrett Wilson? Just they're not like yelling at each other, but I would say spirited conversations between the star quarterback and the star wide receiver. Oh my gosh, I'm shocked. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, no, they've been getting at it pretty good. It feels like it's heated, but it feels like they walk away in an okay spot every time. I mean, at least from what I've seen. I guess you never really know, but heated conversations for sure.
Let's get to my winner and loser. But first, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We all have a lot going on in our lives. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. That's where BetterHelp comes in. Visit betterhelp.com/OKC to get 10% off your first month. I started talking to a therapist when I was playing the NFL. It helped me a lot when it came to dealing with the stress of being at the bottom of the roster and everything that comes with that. I'm a big believer in it. I'm a big believer in therapy and believe it can help so many people if they are just willing to try it. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you go from there. And you can also switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Therapy can help you focus on what really matters in your life. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/OKC to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/OKC to get 10% off your first month.
Three things matter in banking: service, service, and service. First Fidelity Bank's commitment to exceptional service is more than a promise, it's their foundation. FFB has been by your side for over a century, and they're honored to be a part of your journey. Banking isn't about where you've been, it's about where you're headed. Open an account at an award-winning bank today at ffb.com. At First Fidelity Bank, we go where you go.
And head to Opolis Clothing for our podcast merchandise. That's opolisclothing.com, OPOLIS clothing.com, and use promo code TED, TED for 10% off. That's opolisclothing.com, promo code TED for 10% off. Buttery soft and 10% off. My winner of the week, Simone Biles.
Mm.
3 years ago, Ted, watch the best in the world at what she does, not be able to handle the moment, right? And there was a lot going on in the world at that time. I understand that, but that's when we all learned what the twisties were. It led to this big conversation about her mental health and athletics. But the bottom line was at the Tokyo Olympics, she didn't do what we all expected her to do. She took some time away, addressed what she needed to address, and my goodness, did she deliver in Paris in the team competition. United States women gymnastics, utter dominance to get the gold medal in the team competition. Wasn't even close. And Simone Biles, she's just on a level. When she is dialed in, she is on a level that just no one else in the world is on. She is incredible to watch. Like watching her do the floor routine, I just sit there and think about how severely injured I would get on every single thing she does.
Dude, on her first pass, she went out of the screen. She went so high. Like the camera was like, oh my God. what they say, 11 feet 3 inches, and it looks like she jumped 3 times her height where she ended up. It was just incredible.
Congrats to Suni Lee and Jordan Childs and Jade Carey and Hesley Rivera, but Simone Biles is just, I mean, she's just different. She's the best we've ever seen.
She should just go do that same tumbling pass in the high jump pit and go win the high jump gold, right?
That'd be incredible. But
Flip over the bar.
she did all that stuff, going back to the mental toughness part of it, the mental health part of it. She did all that stuff on a calf that was clearly bugging her. So I thought that was awesome to watch. Like she's battling through this physical thing and still goes out there and performs at the highest level imaginable in her sport. And it was cool to see. And it wasn't just her, but it's like, it was cool to see the joy she had doing it. Like she was back
Mm-hmm.
and battling through everything she did the last couple of years to get on the biggest stage in the sport and deliver the way that she did. I just think I was really, really happy for her. I was obviously thrilled because gold for the United States. Let's go. But it was just, I don't know, it's just a great example of an elite athlete having to battle through some adversity and kind of coming out on the other side of it. And it is a joy to watch her do gymnastics. I know very little about the sport, but I know that everything she does looks different than everyone else. And it's
Yeah,
just it was really, really fun to watch, man.
yeah, it's violently explosive whenever she's out there. It's
You
that's the
wanna
best way to
you wanna
put it.
hear
Different.
something you wanna hear something funny? I was watching it with my 3-year-old and I was like, buddy, she's the best gymnast ever. Most decorated gymnast in history. Like she is as good as it gets. And we were watching the floor and I showed him her vault and he goes, That that looks dangerous. I don't want to do that. I go, son, don't worry about it. You're never gonna. I hate to tell my kid he's not going to be able to accomplish anything. I was like, you're never going to be able to do that. And that's
No,
okay, son.
don't worry about it. Yeah, you don't have to make that decision. It does tie into it is dangerous. And hearing her talk about like when you're young and you don't know any better, you are way more confident and you'll attack things with reckless abandon. But as you get older and you got other people around you, it's like you think about that stuff a little bit more, and it's a little bit harder to go 30 feet in the air doing 10 backflips and trying to land it. It's interesting to think about. Yeah, was she 27 now? Which is ancient in gymnastics, and she's still out there doing her thing. Pretty impressive.
You think she's got another Olympics in her?
Well, yeah. I mean, if she
I
wants to,
hope
like,
so. I mean, it is an absolute electric factory to watch her compete. So I hope so.
I think she's obviously the injury thing. It's a lot of impact, but I could see her being like a one event specialist or something moving forward. I
Vault
don't
and
know.
floor.
Yeah,
Those aren't very impactful at all.
yeah, no kidding.
I One last gymnastics thing. I've always been under the impression that the Olympics is about the best athletes in the world competing to see who is the best. That's what I understand that's the Olympics to its core. Now there's the amateur thing of what that all that used to be, but now with what the Olympics is, you've got some age restrictions on some things. I understand that, but to me, it's like the best in the world competing to prove who the absolute best is, which is why I think it is an absolute joke that a country only gets 2 gymnasts in the all around final. Like, so, and Simone Biles going to win unless something crazy happens. Suni Lee, remember, won it last time, and they're going to represent the United States. But I just don't understand if the point is to let the best in the world compete, for the medals, why Jordan Childs can't be in that group when her score qualifies her, when she's clearly one of the best gymnasts. Like that doesn't, I don't understand that. And you could say, well, you don't want one country to dominate the entire thing. Why not? The point is to find out who the best in the world is. If they come from the same country, who gives a damn? I just don't, I don't understand the rule. Like, why is that in place? It doesn't make sense to me, Ted. The whole point is who is the best in the world at gymnastics? I want to watch the best gymnasts in the world compete for who the best in the world
Right,
at gymnastics is.
right. I'm with you. I would even say like if that feels like it's a problem, I would be more comfortable with the rule instead of her not getting the opportunity at all. Like you keep your two highest scores in the all around if you have more than two from your team. Does that make sense? Like you can't go one, two, three. You can only go one, two. But you have three people that have the opportunity to get to those two spots. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, but it should
I
just
know.
be, hey, let's watch the best compete.
I'm with you. I
And
agree.
if they go one, two, three, then hey, guess what? Rest of the world, get better at gymnastics. It's that simple for me, man. Like I don't get it. Someone's gonna have to explain it to me. Maybe like other than, oh, we don't want the other countries to feel bad. Like I don't see any reason why there should be a two-person limit. It makes no sense. If all five or six of the US gymnasts qualify with the best scores for the all around, then let them go, man.
Uh,
It feels like a participation trophy type situation. This is the damn Olympics, man.
yeah, I'm with you. I don't have an answer for you. They're giving us the running clock in gymnastics in the second half. Is that what's happening
Yeah.
here?
And the reason I felt, Jordan Childs got some blowback for how she reacted to watching Suni Lee kind of nail her last rotation. And she knew she wasn't going to get to compete in the all around final. And she was visibly upset. And as she
Don't
should
even
be.
put them in that position. Like I you
Yeah. Like she shouldn't, it shouldn't be like, oh, my teammate did better than me. This sucks. It should be like, okay, I got third. I'm going to be better in the all around final. Like, let's go. Here we go. But instead, she doesn't get to compete at all. It's stupid to me.
yeah, no, I understand it. I agree.
Loser of the week. You ready to talk some women's rugby?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm making the Australian women's rugby sevens my loser of the week just so we can talk about the United States. Oh my gosh. Let me make myself clear. I am extremely glad that Australia's women's rugby sevens got their hearts ripped out of their chests because it was by the United States. My goodness. What you talk about a brutal way to lose a medal at the Olympics. Alex Cedric, she jukes one girl, forces a missed tackle, and then hits a girl with the get off me, and just runs what 90 yards, 85 yards, and goes and
Probably
wins at with the clock expired. And by the way, stoppage time in rugby. I knew there were some people that were looking at it going, "Oh my gosh, the clock's going to run out before she gets there." But it was I what an incredible moment for United States women's rugby. That was absolutely exhilarating to watch. And I have so many questions, but Ted, how much fun was that to watch her just get you some, put you on the ground, and then just outrun everyone? That was so sweet.
yeah, it's been wild. I knew there was a little bit of a rugby push in the United States, but I had no idea what to expect going to the Olympics, but they've looked pretty good. It's been pretty impressive. And I don't know like what if they're in like a much better spot than they've been historic. Like I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know that it looked like they're in a pretty good spot. Fun sport to watch. And now that you mention it, I'm thinking about stoppage time in football. Like if you have the ball last, like you should get the amount of time the other team was hurt on the field in extra time if you need it, right? When you got guys laying
Like,
out there
hey,
acting
hey,
injured.
you stopped our tempo attack. You've laid on the field for approximately 2 minutes and 43 seconds. We're going to add it to the clock.
I mean, just more drama. Can you imagine gather around the TV? Oh, uh, Georgia and Texas are in stoppage time.
Oh, that'd be awesome. The
Yeah,
Hawkeye
that's funny.
technology said he's short of the first down
Yeah,
in stoppage time. I just United States women's rugby, especially the sevens. This was one of the. It's kind of one of the bigger sport or bigger stories of the Olympics, right? Ilona Maher has received a ton of attention, right? I saw that video of Derrick Henry watching the video of her stiff arming that girl. It was, and he was like, "Oh, dang, okay," but it just felt. It feels like some momentum is building for women's rugby, or maybe I'm misjudging it, but I it's America's first rugby medal in 100 years. It's the first time the United States has ever medaled in rugby sevens. It's just awesome, and it makes me wonder. You kind of think about going back to the 90s when United States women's soccer took off the way that it did and what that did for soccer in the country. I wonder if this is going to result in kind of a boost for women's rugby in the country because it's a different body type for a rugby player than it is for a soccer player, and I'm sure there's some women, young women across the country looking at it going,
I
I
want to do that.
yeah, that looks sweet. Like
Yeah,
I just get to tackle people and run and truck stick people. I think that's going to appeal to a lot of different people, a lot of different women across the country, and I don't know, it just made me wonder, hey, when we host this next Summer Olympics, are we going to be talking about United States women's rugby going, hey, there has been an infusion of talent.
I wouldn't mind that at all. I think that would be awesome.
Dude.
I'm all for the Olympic sports catching on. The problem is, as you know, but I mean, you don't have another outlet in like there's not women's football. Like
Right,
it's
but flag football continues to gain
that's
more and
true.
more popularity.
That's
I
true.
I find it very hard to believe that a men's or women's flag football league is ever going to be super popular and televised and stuff like. If you're a woman and you really, really like playing flag football and you see rugby and all this attention that Ilona Maher
Yes.
and this team has gotten, and the fact that you get to go to the damn Olympics, like maybe you look at it and go, "Let I'm going to be a rugby player. Let's go."
That's what I'm saying. Like for the men, like your elite rugby players, you feel like are playing football, right? Like
Yes,
there's not that
100%.
avenue for women. Like that, your elite rugby players are going to be playing rugby. So that's no, I think you're onto something there. I like it.
I would sign me up for an elite, like the best in the world women's rugby team. I I watched every second of their games that was on TV and really enjoyed it. Like really, really enjoyed it. So I am, if we want to become the best in the world at that, sign me up. I'm all in. Like it's really entertaining. Like the physicality of it appeals to me clearly as a football person. So I
How big
am.
is it? I know it's big. Like you got the Australian rules football and that, but how big is it globally?
I think
Like
it's
where
pretty
does
big,
it?
man. I think it's soccer's just kind of in its own
Yes.
stratosphere. I think rugby's next
Is
for
that like
European countries.
yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, what's
Maybe
the next like
basketball.
biggest professional sport? Yeah,
That's a good
I
question.
know.
I do not know the answer to that.
I know there's some big like the teams down in like New Zealand
Yeah.
and like that's big money operation down there. But I don't know how it is the rest of the globe. Interesting.
I yeah, I could get on board with some elite rugby. I was trying to think of what the football equivalent to what that play was, but I couldn't come up with it. Like, is that a Hail Mary? Typically, but she truck sticks someone. Is it like throwing a screen or like just hand it, trying to pop one run before you throw the Hail Mary and you break a tackle and you take it for a touchdown? I don't know. I was having trouble coming up with the football equivalent of it. It was awesome. That's all I
I
know.
don't.
It was so sweet.
Yeah, I guess I don't. I'm not sure what it is. It's like it's a Hail Mary whenever I guess your quarterback broke his throwing arm, right? You're just gonna have to hand it off and see where you go. Yeah,
I don't
it's
know, but that was it's one of the more electric moments of the Olympics so far. Congratulations, United States women's rugby sevens made history. First rugby medal for the U.S. in 100 years. That's so
awesome.
awesome. Birthday shout outs. Happy 29th birthday to Riley Sanders.
Happy 41st birthday to Chase,
Happy birthday to Matt Stetson.
and happy 30th anniversary to Don and Lisa Johnson.
On that note, episode 444 in the books. We'll have a new podcast that'll drop on Sunday. Just a reminder, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, like the YouTube channel, comment, and all that stuff. I don't know, it's supposed to be good for us. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. Have an awesome weekend. Until next time, we appreciate you all for listening. Do what you always do, Oklahoma. Take care of each other.